So Rod, I understand that you have been instrumental in the development of the Treuhaft 356 spindles. Can you tell me how we got here and why?
On most of the cars that we build, we still use the traditional 356 front suspension, which is just an evolution of the VW suspension. When Porsche first started building the 356, they used VW components, trailing arm front suspension, and they actually used the VW spindle for the first cars up until 1959.
Okay.
So this is a traditional VW Type 1 spindle, and you can see that, you know, on the right side you've got a solid spindle, and then on the left one you've got your speedo cable that runs through. You can see the size of the diameter right here is fairly small, especially if it's bored for the speedo cable.
Yes.
So when we were vintage racing and, you know, kind of going through the paces, you put more power in these cars, better brakes, and just the fatigue of the metal, we actually have broken the spindle.
So this is the weak.
Right here on typically the left front spindle.
Gotcha. Okay.
So Porsche also had some of those early failures, and so what they did in 1960 is they did what they called the reinforced spindle, which you can see the difference.
Yeah.
So they went with a larger inner diameter for the bearing. They enlarged the size of the spindle itself, so you can see the diameter difference.
Yes.
Now, dimensionally, everything else is the same on here, which means that this spindle, the later reinforced spindle, which Porsche used from 1960 to 63, could be used all the way back to the earliest 356s. So it made this a pretty valuable little piece, because if you were going to, you know, have bigger tires, better brakes, better suspension, you wanted the B, what they called the B spindle.
The B spindle. Okay.
Yep. So all the cars that I've built about 225 cars to this level. I put B spindles on every one of them. Well, those cars were only made for 3 years, so you can imagine the scarcity of that.
Yes.
And there's a number of things that happen to these spindles that kind of give them, you know, that caused that we started to run out of these. You know, once the pin wears out, so it's king and link, right?
Yes.
So you've got your link pins, but you've got a king pin that runs through here that ties the knuckle together. Well, if that starts to wear out, the spindle's no good, or you have to sleeve it. The other thing is, you know, somebody cross-threaded the spindle nut, or they didn't grease the bearings, and the bearings ran hot and scored, you know, these surfaces. So the spindles have just become hard to find. So I went to Treuhaft and said, look, there's a need for a spindle. Obviously, personally, I need them for the cars that I'm building, but I think it's really an upgrade for anybody that has any Porsche and any King and Link VW Type 1 car from 1947 to, you know, the 60s, because having that reinforced spindle is going to ensure that you're going to be able to have a safe front end on your car. And, you know, it's one thing to, you know, have a flat in the rear or have a problem in the rear, but, you know, you just don't want to have any issues in the front. So the guys at Treuhaft put together a spindle that has all the best pieces and components put together. It's a forged spindle that has the races or the surfaces for the bigger bearings, so exactly like we need. They also made the steering arm a little bit beefier. You can see that Porsche evolved that as well.
Yes.
This was the early 356
It looks very
arm,
delicate.
very delicate. And then on the B, you can see it, they beefed it up a bit.
Yes.
There's enough room and clearance that Treuhaft went ahead and just added a little bit more to just give you that strength that you need. So it can also be used in off-road. That's the other thing, is that a lot of these B spindles got used up on the King and Link early VW cars that ran off-road stuff.
Okay.
Because if you didn't run a B or off-road spindle
You're just gonna
and
snap
you went to Baja, you were going to snap it.
Right. Okay.
So, yeah, this new spindle is awesome. And we've ordered them both ways, either unassembled, so 2 parts, and then we go ahead and press the King and Links together and do that. We've also ordered them assembled, and it just depends on what we're doing. But they're working out great, and they're a perfect companion to our bigger brakes that we use on our cars. The other thing that Treuhaft did is they made the other components that are necessary to make it all come together. There's shims that are inside of here that are different thicknesses when you're setting up the link pin or king pin setup inside here. You know, you've got varying thicknesses depending on what you need. So they've made all the different shims that are necessary. Also, the seal race that gets pressed on here. So, you know, link pins themselves, you know, have been available forever. The king pins have been available forever, but those shims
Yes.
are now available. The seal race is now available, and we've got a reinforced forged spindle that I'm going to put on every car from here going forward.
That's awesome. Thank you, Rod. I'm so glad that we were able to collaborate on this, and more importantly, that you can build more of these awesome cars.
Thank you.